Do you have any tips in particular for someone who's trying to figure out and distinguish, like, where's the fuzzy line between like a reasonable cultural norm and getting to that harmful gaslighting territory?
I think it all comes down to how we share information, right? It's the simple couples therapy technique of start your sentences maybe with I instead of you, and take ownership, but creating space to hear the other point of view. It could very well be that a family may say, listen, we only know that people get married and have children and have that path forward. But that if when it's handed as a mandate, you have failed us. What is wrong with you? Because when you say to someone, what is wrong with you? You have already diminished, right? And gaslighting is about a power differential. It's a person who's got trust, authority, and expertise talking down to someone who the more they push them down, the more power that they have over them. And so when you say, what is wrong with you? That's exactly when it has become gaslighting. But it's like, if a family could say, this is not what we're used to. This is something very new to us. Can you give us a little while to think about this and adjust? That's not gaslighting. It's still saying like, we're not down with this, but could we have a minute? That's very different. You're still clear that they don't like this.
Yes.
But it's very different than there's something wrong with you for wanting this other thing. I have a very traditionally Indian mother, and one of what I've seen is she's gotten older and I've gotten older. She's gotten so good at saying, I just don't understand your life versus that's not right. And I'm very grateful for that, because then I actually have more empathy for her at those times too, because then I think to myself, she doesn't. Why would she know more than I understood her life in many ways? That I try to, and I could see it and see it's different than mine. But by saying that she doesn't understand it, then I can also integrate her point of view, saying she doesn't understand. We've had, in this generational leap between my parents and I, there's a very, very big difference. And so, of course, she wouldn't understand it. And so then, instead of feeling like I'm in an argument, I can feel more like I'm in a collaboration.
I often tell people, like, just stay grounded in health and safety, right?
Right. And that's still hard feedback, because they themselves came from parents who were likely even more authoritarian, more directive, more commandeering, that they may actually felt like they've come a long way. In fact, that's something intergenerational I've heard in my mother, who said, you have no idea how authoritarian my mother was. I mean, it was almost like it was commands. And, that it was that simple. And you followed them or the wrath would be terrifying. That's not at all how I grew up. So I can even see sort of the familial generational shift. But it is still the sense that, and I've seen this again in this very large Indian family I come from, and many of my South Asian clients, is that the generation that tries to deviate from the norm too much, there is so much pushback from so many people that you do feel like you're trying to penetrate a fortress. And that can be very, very unsettling.
Like a big psychological toll. If someone's kind of new to this or just kind of questioning, like, what are some ways to like avoid getting pulled into these manipulations, or like noticing?
I think one of the hardest things is when you're slowly finding yourself kind of jousting at windmills and trying to avoid manipulation and gaslighting, is that you're so desperate to be seen and accurately heard that you can start wasting a lot of energy on constantly defending yourself and explaining yourself. The problem is you don't have a receptive audience.
Right.
Gaslighters only see their point of view. So for you to sit there and craft this long response. In fact, one of the classical mistakes I see people make is they say, they're not listening to me. They're not listening to me. I have an idea. I'm going to sit down and craft a beautiful email. And my goodness, they put more work into these emails than they do their dissertations. And they knock themselves out. And they send this beautiful, thoughtful email. And the family just gaslights it and rejects it out of hand. They don't want to hear it. Not in writing, not in homing pigeons, not from your voice, nothing. So it really becomes about you yourself doing the deep dive with yourself. That could be in therapy, that could be with yourself, however you feel comfortable, that it could just be you speaking out loud to a friend about what your authentic life is about, what you want, what you hope for, what you're about, and that you've got to let go of this idea of converting your family. And I think especially in a collectivistic culture, the idea of not being embraced in that safe space of the family is rather catastrophic. So the idea of having to go along to get along, when that going along to get along is so far off what the person wants, that they're having to tread a very fine line, to which I say it's not about a choice, but it becomes about acceptance, that you may not ever get to a place where your family is signing off on what you want, nor do they want to hear about it. It does require you to be deeply acquainted with your reality. You cannot gaslight an ungaslightable person. A person who's ungaslightable is very comfortable with their reality. They know themselves, and as much as it's uncomfortable and it's hard to hold on to that when it feels like the world is trying to pull it away, you hold on to it. It's like, I don't know, holding on to your pet while you flee from a fire. You're not going to let it jump out of your arms. You're going to hold it tight. Same thing with your reality. You're holding on to it tight and saying, no one's taking this away from me. And I've got to be very careful about whom I share this with.
In one of the books I've recommended to a lot of people, Stop Walking on Eggshells, one of the simplest techniques was sort of just that, like, broken record, and being able to say, I'm sorry you feel that way, but this is what I'm choosing. I'm sorry you feel that way. I might be making a mistake, but this is what I'm doing. And being able to hold that. Right.
Yep. And being consistent. And that, I think for many people, especially when you come from tribe gaslighting family systems, pleasing other people is in your DNA. So to break out of that people-pleasing mode and saying, I'm going to do it this way, and feeling like, well, what does it feel like to not be on my throne? Like, what does it feel like to not be valued? What does it feel like that I am about to be, again, that I am not going to be held in that same position because I'm doing it my way? That is also a loss of identity. And one has to understand that in many ways you may have held back on this authentic journey because your family, it was comfortable, like an old sofa.